I have a friend who's a real rocket scientist. No, really, a rocket scientist. I'm going to tell you the story of my friend Deb. Deb grew up loving math and science. She was also good at the French horn, the flute, and the piano, tennis, and swimming. Yes, her mother would call her well-balanced. Early on, she thought she might want to be a doctor, but she really didn't like the sight of blood. And then she thought, oh, dentist. Yeah, dentist would be good. I don't like bad breath. By the time she was a junior in high school, they had lived in Detroit, and she was in the city of cars. Everybody was an engineer. But Deb wanted to do something nobody had done before. It was around the time of the first space rocket went up, and Deb thought, that's it, aerospace engineer. That's my space. And then she made a plan. She graduated with a bachelor's in science and a master's in science and in aerospace engineering, and went on to become an expert in rockets, defense, and Russian. Do something no one has ever done before. And that became her mantra. So over the course of her career, she became the chief of the Moscow operations for a major defense company, then the president of a startup rocket company, then the general manager for an international manufacturing company heading up their aerospace division, and was the senior-most executive in Washington, D.C. And today, she is president of a U.S. space and defense business for an international aerospace company. Do something you've never done before. Well, she stood on the shoulders of Katherine Johnson, the American mathematician whose calculations were critical for the success of the first space flight and the others to follow. We all get to stand on the shoulders today of Deb, a rocket scientist who is a leader in the aerospace community. But you know, the funny part is she never ever heard of Katherine Johnson until the movie Hidden Figures came out. So why am I telling you this? Because we get to stand on the shoulders of women like Deb. But we have so much further to go, and we need people like you to help us get there. How do you get into leadership and be perceived as a leader? You know, there's a couple ways. One is through sponsorship, one is through having a role model, and one that's really important is building a powerful network. So today we're actually going to talk about building a powerful network. Anybody who knows me knows that I believe in the power of women. And I believe that women bring a unique perspective to leadership. A long time ago, I learned that strategic networking is like this virtuous chain. It continues. One, a powerful network increases your visibility. Your visibility increases your power and status, which in turn creates your ability to build and maintain the right kind of relationships. And with those relationships, you get more things done with them. So the time you spend on building your network has a huge impact on your career and your status. And I believe that you enhance your power when you build the right network. And that means you need a toolkit. A Power Networking Leadership Toolkit. And in that toolkit are three things. One, understanding the power of relationships. Two, understanding the power of social networks, social media. And three is understanding the power of your image and presence. So let's start with the power of relationships. As women, we need to recognize that building power and having power is the natural state of any leader. But sometimes we women look at that as being selfish because our leadership style is naturally much more collaborative. That's okay. Our ability to collaborate is a strength, and we need to use that. Women build strategic connections that strengthen organizations because women are natural networkers and relationship builders. So what are the aspirations for your career? How will building your power base help advance those goals? Well, here's a few ways to do that. Get a pen. Write down 2 people you do not know but would like to add to your network. They can be fellow leaders in your community. They can be business luminaries. They could be thought leaders, or they could be an author in your industry. Who did you choose? Why? Now, how are you going to meet them? Well, the first place to start is to ask your existing network if they can help you. And the next best place to go is to go to your LinkedIn network. Who knows the person you want to be introduced to, and ask them to make the introductions for you. You can also look at conferences or panels that they're going to be speaking and try to attend them. And better yet, volunteer to be on one of those panels yourself, because that will provide you with great external exposure. So how deep is your network in your industry? Are some of those connections in your industry, are they able to provide introductions to thought leaders for you? I utilize my membership in the International Women's Forum to get introductions to great thought leaders and to women executives. The International Women's Forum, by the way, is a global organization that you have to be the highest woman in the organization to be a part of it. So you can see why I like this one. Do you want to cross over to another industry? I mean, your skill sets can work in any industry. But is your network broad enough to help you get there? So let's look at that. Can you identify some strategic connections that could help you cross over into another industry? I'll give you an example. I wanted to get involved in the tech industry where there are few women at the top. I came out of executive search a while ago, and I had a fantastic network. Actually, I still have a fantastic network. I reached back into my executive contacts and the CEO that I put into a major trade association, a major technology trade association. I asked him for introductions to the 2 people that I wanted to meet. Well, guess what? I did meet those 2 people, but he also asked me to speak at the conference, their technology conference, and to work with him on developing webinars for women in technology. That was a great phone call. But the other thing I want you to remember is, as you network, are you bringing other women along with you into your network? Let's look at that a minute. How many of you and how many in your network would describe you as a woman who brings other women along with them? There really are not a lot of women who've made it to the top who are actually willing to help other women. They say it, but they actually don't do it because they think they made it on their own. One comes to mind who is the head of she's a major defense contractor. And I've asked her several times. She has refused to speak at women's conferences. And she said, I made it on my own. Now, we all know that's not true. Somebody helped her, and it was probably a man. The other thing I'd like to say is I know too many women who don't keep in touch with great connections, and they can't even remember how they met that person. Don't let that be you. I have seen women who refuse to leave their desk at night until the work is done because they think somebody's going to see how hard they work and then promote them. That's not how it works. Look around the office. Where are the men? Yeah, they're not there. They're probably on the golf course discussing their next career move. Or better yet, they're at a professional networking event, which is where you should be. You need to get up away from your desk and you need to do professional networking. And the second piece of your toolkit is understanding the power of social networks. So if any of you follow my blogs in various magazines, and I also write for LinkedIn, so you will know that I wrote an article called Social Media is a Bona Fide Leadership Tool. But you know the funny part? Women are very skeptical about, and women executives in particular are skeptical about social media. So you may be uncomfortable with it, and you may not know how to use social media to advance yourself in your career. But what you do need to understand is that social media is a powerful tool that you can use to grow your professional network and your executive profile. So if I say two words, Arianna Huffington, you may not know that name, but you do know the name Huffington Post. Arianna built an empire out of her relationships with people. She started Huffington Post after her failed attempt to run for governor of the state of California. But what she did learn was the power of the internet, which was very young at that time, and all of those relationships she made. And the rest is history. She started Huffington Post, and in those days, blogging was really very new. But today, as a leader, you need a well-crafted social media strategy, or you're going to be left behind. Your social media strategy is also part of your Power Network. So by expanding that into your toolkit to include social media, you are now accomplishing two of the most important aspects of leadership. One, you're strengthening your reputation as a leader. And two, enhancing your company's brand. So engaging in social media is an absolute true investment in your personal brand. I have a social media director, and she has tripled, no, maybe quadrupled my personal brand and my business profile. I get calls to speak at conferences and lead workshops, and I speak on women in leadership because I have a brand in the women's leadership. So crafting that strong, authentic personal brand is one of the strongest keys of executive presence. Because if you don't take care of your online brand, search engines and third-party tweets are going to take care of it for you, and you do not want that. And here's one last reason for you to need an online presence. It's the skill set that sets you apart from other leaders. And the last tool in your toolkit is your image and your presence. You know, we make impressions on people instantly, whether they're good or bad. Do you actually know what you're saying when you aren't saying anything? Nonverbal communications actually tell people a story about you. People form impressions based on your nonverbal communications, the way you hold yourself, the way you walk into a room. It's important to be aware of how you come across to people and how to be able to adjust for it. You know, powerful people are very expansive in their body language. They take up space, and that kind of signals they have status in the room. That's why the classic posture of a man with his feet on the desk, sitting back holding his head, is such an accurate description because it takes up space and it also projects power. But women have facial expressions and tone, which projects image as well. And many times those facial expressions can express and project power. It also projects gender equality, which means I belong here as much as you do. But women's postures, the other part we have to learn is we tend to make ourselves smaller, and that is exactly the opposite of coming across with power. We don't have access to a range of power postures that men traditionally use, but we do have Wonder Woman. How many of you have heard of Amy Cuddy, the Harvard professor and TEDx speaker who speaks about confidence? In her book, Presence, Amy teaches us how to access our personal power and come across with confidence to achieve our goals. Her famous saying, and I'm sure you've heard it before, is fake it until you become it. Don't you love that? The other thing that Amy left us with is power posing. That's standing in a posture of confidence, even though you don't feel so confident, but it will make you feel confident after you get into that pose. Standing with your arms outstretched and yay! Or hands on your hips. That is actually the Wonder Woman pose. So posing in a power stance for 2 minutes a day can actually boost your confidence. I can tell you I did a power pose before I started this presentation. So everybody get up. Let's stand in a power pose. Outside of the Wonder Woman pose, you actually need to find some posture that will allow you to spread your wings more comfortably in the office as well. And most of the time we're in meetings, and most of the time women sit at the back. Get your seat right at the table. Sit back in the chair and put your hands on the armrest. And better yet, if you could find a seat with an empty seat next to you, lean over and take up more space. And you can also widen your stance when you're standing by putting one foot slightly in front of the other. You start to take up more space. These are just small, subtle changes that we can use, but they convey presence and they also give you more confidence. So ask yourself, is there a woman role model in your company, in your school, in your network that's in leadership? Is there somebody like that in leadership? Is she a role model? Can she be your role model? So, the Power Networking Leadership Toolkit consists of 1. Building powerful relationships, 2. Building social media networks, and 3. Leveraging the power of your presence and your image. So here are the tools. This is the blueprint. You are no longer hidden. You control your own future. I'm going to leave you with words from someone I've admired so much throughout my life, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And it goes like this. Women belong in all the places where decisions are made. Go out and make your decisions.